Hello and welcome to PolyInnovator. So my name is Dustin. This is the Now Page update number 12, July 2021. And so I'm super excited to share this episode with you because this update is kind of marking the end of the first year of having all these Now Page updates.
Dustin Miller, PolyInnovator.
I really started back in August of last year, so this is the first time that my birthday aligned with this particular update. In fact, I'm now recording this on the 3rd, which is not a good thing, because I always wanted to get these done on the 1st, that was my rule, and this is the first time I failed at that, and I think it's because the birthday there just got me all confused and busy with things. So I apologize for being a couple days late, although I don't know how many people watch these at this particular time anyways, but these are mainly for either for me when I'm looking back in the future, or people who are just curious about what happened over the years that you'll see. Like, what if I become super famous one day and people want to see, like, what is little old Dustin like when he's 26? Which now I'm turned 26. So the world has changed a lot over the past year. We're recovering from COVID, and I think that everybody has had just a change in the way they live their lives. Not only just do our habits have changed, that doesn't work. Not only have our habits have changed, but on top of that, our lifestyles have changed. You can see how every fast food restaurant or retail stores, all the crappy places to work usually, are now looking for employees and even raising their wages to try to get people to come in. And even my work, which is actually a pretty good place to work, which is the city, where it's kind of like the YMCA, if you will, for the town that I live in, has struggled to find people. And it's one of those things where we're now seeing as a society that people are not willing to work those grunt level jobs as much anymore. Now, as a lifeguard or swim instructor, which will technically be that entry level position, it's still a nice job to work. You end up feeling good about yourself. You feel like you're helping people. Swimming is a great life skill, and then lifeguarding, you're protecting people. So even if there is a lot of grunt work, like cleaning up the pool deck or something like that, it's not as bad because you're not necessarily sitting there doing nothing the whole time, not feeling productive. So, and for me, I have spent over the past many years, actually, since I turned about 20, talking to people about traveling and moving, or maybe working on a cruise ship, something or other to get out of my hometown. Now, ironically, after going to like Houston or San Diego, or even just other places around the country that I have been lucky enough to visit, I've seen how other cities operate, at least to a degree. Spending 1 week is not enough time to really involve yourself in a particular place, but you can see a lot of the baseline things that might be playing in some places. Like in Houston, the urban sprawl is out of control, and I thought that was a really big deal. Other people were just used to it, but considering how, even in my city, I felt that urban sprawl was out of control. We're only 5 miles wide. That's kind of a big deal. I went to one place in Houston, went to another place, and the distance between those two places was the same distance that my whole city encompasses here. And granted, that particular idea comes from the whole smart city design that I want to go into. And a lot of people don't know that about me. So that's why I want these updates to really be helpful, because I've told people for a long time I want to move. Why do I want to move? Well, I don't feel like Columbia, where I live now, is necessarily fitting for a techie like me. Sure, we have a blossoming little startup community, and there's a lot of colleges here, so there's a lot of people my age, but it's not necessarily what I'm looking for. And I also want to travel around the world. I'm curious about places. I love exploring. Some of my best memories of various places I've traveled to were literally just exploring the town by walking around and seeing things. And I want to be able to do that around the world. So one thing I might do in the future is a travel series on PolyInnovator, and maybe that could be a phase that allows me to travel but also share content with people and tell them what I experienced. Perhaps that could be the Codex entries or something like that. And then on top of that, now there is this idea of, like, people talked about working on cruise ships. Now that idea is completely gone because people don't want to work on a cruise ship when there was a pandemic not that long ago, and those really suffered on the ship. So my dreams may be great, whether it's traveling, creating music, creating content, or somewhere in between, or working in smart city development, like I said moments ago. And I felt that PolyInnovator was a great baseline for this. And so that's why I do these updates too, to keep people along the pathway of what I'm working on. And I'm trying not to drone on here, but I am excited. It's interesting how by documenting the journey, you can actually see more of it. And so me trying to share this with you is making me think in my head, what is important enough to share, what is something I think is not important but other people might find interesting. Just look at this room, for example. I've changed this room 60 times since I moved into this place. And I've moved everything around, the bookshelf, the desk, getting every piece of furniture aligned. And I didn't want this particular view because it has kind of a blander view. You see furniture that I don't want people seeing. I don't need people seeing that I have a tower fan there to stay cool when I'm working on my computer. And all the cable management here is not necessarily the greatest. But I mentioned this because I was on a call with a friend of mine who has a great setup. And I actually put this bookshelf here with this light that turns colors and stuff like that. It's even had a poster above it for the longest time. I put all that there to make it look more interesting on that wall. But now, as you can tell, it's not much to it. Maybe if I close the curtain and turn on the light, it'll look a little bit better. But that is something I spent time on. I spent time on trying to make it look kind of cool, having a little statue there, something like that. I used to hide that amiibo in all my videos for at least 40 of the POLYCAST interview episodes where people could see, like, hey, where did he put the amiibo in there somewhere? It's just a little game I played just to see if anyone was paying attention to the background. And so I wasn't going to mention it until the future. The future has come around now where I don't necessarily move it around anymore. But for at least half of the interviews I've done so far, you can go back and look, where did he hide the amiibo this time? Where did he hide the amiibo this time? And I wanted to make a little game out of it. And so that's one thing I kind of like to share with people, just have those neat little ideas. So what am I doing now? Well, this section used to start out by dividing the personal and professional. And since PolyInnovator is both, over time it just started melding together. And that defeats the purpose of these now updates, because not everything I do is going to be professional. Like personally, I need to start my reading habit again, or do better working out. I have been doing better working out, mind you. I've said this for the past few updates where I was like, I'm not working out enough. Well, I've been slowly and surely doing more and more. And you can even see now that I have muscle. I'm not necessarily deteriorating or wasting away, but my habits need to be more in sync with what I'm doing and what my goals are, or establishing new goals. Now that COVID has changed everybody, we have to establish new goals. And realizing that and then following through on that, I think is key. And the same thing goes professionally too. COVID changed the jobs, like I mentioned earlier. COVID changed how I work too. I started working more outside of the main place I worked at because people didn't feel comfortable going to a public setting. So by working at someone else's pool, I could teach them still, but not necessarily have to worry about the virus when that was a thing still. It still is now, but just saying like when it was more prevalent. Now, personally, I want to organize my life in Notion. Now with the Notion API too, which I've mentioned in the post a few times, is something that can really dramatically change my updates and and for everything basically. However, it's also professional too. It has PolyInnovator in there along with my personal life. So understanding how I need to separate that dynamic in my own personal system, or maybe in some cases combine them. I think some people isolate certain parts of their lives too much because your work is your life. Your life is what you do. And so people are going to remember you for what you've done throughout your life. How should I organize that on my personal side? And so I've been changing up my dashboard when it comes to the system. I also realized on mobile, it doesn't really show up too well. Maybe I need to fix that. So understanding that dynamic for Notion and how I'm going to share my own PolyInnovation operating system with the world so that they can copy it for themselves, that's something I'm working on. Along with the modular degree system, which is part of that PolyInnovation OS. So personally, I've been working on that. But I've also just not been super great emotionally. The day before my birthday, I felt really down and out and couldn't get my mood up whatsoever. I tried so hard to do so. And so the 4 pillars speaking, my body isn't ideal. I've gained more fat since COVID. I've not necessarily worked out as much, so my muscles aren't as elastic or quick to respond as they used to be, although I'm still a fast twitch sprinter gene person, which means that I'm going to still be quicker than most, but to where I was before, I don't twitch as fast, I don't react as fast, which partially is neuromuscular connection as well. And having a lot of stuff happening in life just makes it harder as well. So mentally, I've felt foggy, sluggish. So physically, I've not really been able to pair that up too well. And then having a lack of nootropics in my system definitely hasn't helped either. Luckily, I have some on today, but I've also been increasing my caffeine intake dramatically, which is definitely a good thing. But by decreasing it, it made me stop drinking caffeine at the normal times I do in an effort to stop drinking it as much, which also makes me more sluggish. So I've tried to fall back on the philosophies that I've learned over the years and try to see how that can help keep me going a little bit more positively. Part of it all could stem from the fact that I started a new role for the city where I'm just helping out the aquatic supervision team to help get everything just going through the summer. Since we have a whole bunch of new staff, there's a whole bunch of new stress coming onto my bosses. I wanted to help them out. It also gave me more hours, which helps me pay for all the bills for PolyInnovator as well. And so I've been working a lot more hours, about triple the amount of hours I used to, which isn't saying much considering that I've always worked very minimal hours compared to most people. But it's definitely draining, and making sure I don't mess up considering how attention to detail this role is. I had to make sure I spend a lot of mental energy, sometimes even physical energy, getting things done, moving stuff around, making sure I get the numbers correct, that kind of thing. And so I think by the time I get home, my brain just isn't up to par. I'm not resting or taking naps at right times or something like that. Something I'm not doing correctly now is not allowing me to work on PolyInnovator stuff when I get home. I need to time things better or something like that. So I've been working through getting my professional life at work and professional life online synced together in a right way. Ironically, by the time I get it done, I'll probably be done with a lot of this extra work because once the summertime ends, it won't be as common for me to be doing. And like I said, professionally, I've been diving into that new role. And so it's added a ton of weight to me. That's why I haven't done the interviews as much, which is partially an excuse. I have been procrastinating quite a bit, but I have been doing each of these interviews on my own for the past year. Recording, setting up times, and editing, uploading, releasing, marketing, all of it by myself, which I've tried not to complain about it too much, but those interviews are long. That's on me. I wanted to do long interviews. I'm so happy I did long interviews. But to put it in perspective, doing one every week, let alone 3 times a week, is what I was wanting to do, is basically editing a movie in one day and then releasing it. And so getting the mental energy out, let alone the actual time allotted for it, has been difficult. So in a bigger view, what's coming up? Well, I always work on things in secret. The United Living construct, when I worked on it, was kind of like in secret when I did it. I didn't actually really push it out to the world too much because I still felt embarrassed by the idea of wanting to work in smart city design or creating a hub of innovation. Now I live by it. Now I stay by it. But I still have a lot of projects to work on in secret, like my first book, which is about swimming. I might release a different book first, depending on just which one gets finished first at this point. But I have those books in the backlog, almost a dozen, just kind of lined up right there. No, you know what I mean? Like, I have tons of ideas, need to get them out. Doesn't matter if you have ideas unless you get them out. And there's also the idea of the systems that I've been creating for the PolyInnovation OS and the modular degree, which are semi-secret templates that I haven't really shared with the world just yet. And those are other projects I want to get out. Been trying so hard to finish them, and as a perfectionist, things are never finished, so I just need to get it to the point where I can create a template and send it out there. Other than that, I really don't have any much more to share, and this episode's already getting kind of long enough as it is, so I'm going to end it here. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, let me know in the comments. Have a great day. Thanks for listening to PolyInnovator.